And what's up? Welcome in Tuesday episode of GC Live. Wes Mitchell here with Collyn Taylor joining me today. Chris Clark still taking a little bit of time off. Collyn, we don't have a ton of time, man. So let's jump right into it. There was honestly, I wanted to do a show yesterday, but there was frankly so much going on, tacking on everything going on over the weekend to a football press conference and information coming out from that as well. We're going to try to, I guess, digest everything that's happened over the last few days and cram it into, I don't know, about 30 minutes here, because I know you've got to hop on to some baseball stuff after this. But I feel like as much as there is to talk about, the name GG Jackson is kind of at the front of the conversation for pretty much everybody who is a South Carolina fan right now. So, Collyn, you made that trip up to Fort Mill.
Yep.
Last night, saw him play in playoffs. You spoke to him as well. So I'll let you sort of take the floor, man. What do people need to know if they've been living under a rock and they've not been reading Gamecock Central and the reporting on GG so far? I know you'd spoken to him. You've now spoken to his dad as well. Y'all can go read that full story on Gamecock Central as well. What is the latest you're getting here, Collyn?
Yeah, so for those, like you said, for those who've been living under a rock, GG Jackson is the number, I want to say he's the number 10 player in the On3 rankings, number 7 in the consensus. Plays at Ridgeview from South Carolina. He's someone that South Carolina's tracked for a while. They hosted on an official visit starting Friday, going through Sunday. All indications are things went really well. Now he's kind of getting into the potential to make a decision sometime soon. So that's coming down the pipe. I always forget that one, but chance for him to potentially pick South Carolina. They're right in the running with the North Carolinas, the Dukes of the world. So have a lot of really complimentary things to say about South Carolina, the program, the staff, the visit. And he's been receptive. The quote that got passed around on social media last night from our interview with him, he's been very, incredibly receptive to staying home and playing and being what Asia Wilson was on the women's side and what Jadeveon Clowney was on the football side of things. So we talked with him. We talked with his dad. Obviously talked to people around the recruitment, around with knowledge of the visit. So plenty of GG to go around, and we might have some more, not only GG stuff, but recruiting news as the week goes on, as we get away from what was a really successful and productive recruiting weekend for South Carolina.
Yeah, so I think you can if you're the staff, you can kind of only use this pitch with a select few people. But GG Jackson is, I believe, probably a good enough prospect, and you would say a well enough known prospect, high enough ranked prospect that you can. He kind of goes above and beyond just being an on the court type recruitment, and to mention Asia Wilson, to mention Jadeveon Clowney, the fact he met with Spencer Rattler to talk about some of the NIL opportunities that Spencer's had and just what it's been like being big man on campus for a few weeks at South Carolina, Collyn. It feels a little bit like the Lattimore recruitment to me, honestly. Certainly that was a part of the pitch with Clowney, and I'm sure that was part of the pitch to an extent with Gilmore the year before. But I just remember Lattimore being the guy that was in-state, was very well known, and that was sort of taking his time with going through the process, going to multiple official visits, while also giving his home state school every opportunity to recruit him. And whether South Carolina gets GG Jackson or not, he has given the Gamecocks every opportunity to try and put their best foot forward, which I think says something about he and his family's interest in seeing if South Carolina can be everything they need in a program, I guess would be the best way to say it, without having to venture out to one of these, quote, blue blood programs that's outside of the state's borders.
Yeah, and that's been a big pitch that, listen, you can have success if South Carolina does end up landing Gigi, whether that's in the 23, 22 class, whichever one he decides to come out with. They're going to do it outwork, beating out the North Carolinas, the Dukes. Virginia's shown interest. Georgetown's shown interest. You have Auburn and Texas A&M showing interest, but I mean Duke and North Carolina, the two real big ones outside of South Carolina right now. The pitch has been, listen, you can celebrate anywhere, you can go put up numbers anywhere, but it's a little bit more special at home, and they kind of really tried to drive that point home on his official visit. They had the big message at halftime with PJ Dozier, with Asia Wilson, with Kerry Rich, with Alex English, and Justin Mackey, all these guys that stayed home and had success doing it. They really tried to drive that point home that, listen, you're gonna be really good wherever you go, but it makes it a little bit more special if you stay home and do it playing 25 minutes from where you play high school ball. And I think that that's something that has appealed to him, and I think that that's a big driving factor, and the fact now that he can make money off his name, he can make money off his image and his likeness, and there's some revenue streams in Columbia being that big man on campus if he were to commit, and I think that that's appealing as well.
So are we still thinking, based on what you got from Gigi and his dad, decision soon, decision at the end of the playoff run? Is that, I feel like my many years following and covering recruiting, decision timetables can be very fluid, and it's something that can change really at the drop of a hat. But right now, as we talk on 2-2, whatever it is, yeah, is this a situation where we're still anticipating a possible decision soon?
Yeah, I think so. Even I've talked to Gigi, probably 4 or 5 times this season, just at different events and all that. And he's been pretty consistent in terms of when his timeline is. He's not said, I'm committing on February this, or I'm committing on March this. He doesn't have a date, but the timeline itself has been pretty consistent, that it was going to be sometime after all of his scheduled official visits were taken. South Carolina was the last one he had scheduled. So, and then now it's after that, and both he and his father both said, we're going to finish up this playoff run, which they're in the semifinals. The semifinals are Saturday, and then the finals would be the following week. We're going to finish up that and then kind of sit down as a family and make a decision. So it's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be the next day, but over the next couple weeks, maybe a month or so, you could potentially have a decision for Gigi. And then the next question after that is, does he reclassify?
And that obviously, if it's South Carolina, that is a massive, possibly as big as the actual decision itself, Collyn.
Yeah, and you pair it with, I've really liked what South Carolina's tried to do with their 2022 recruiting class. With, you got a top 150 kid in Zach Davis, who I saw recently, and has the potential to be really good. You have some pieces to work with in a Daniel Sanford and a Bryce Lindsey, who have some potential there. And then if you add Gigi Jackson, not only if you add him, but if you get him to reclassify into that 2022, that's cooking with gas if you're Frank Martin in South Carolina's program. So that would be huge. They haven't come to a decision on that really at all, and it's a matter of do he and his family feel ready from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a maturity standpoint, to make the jump to college ball, foregoing what would be his senior year at Ridgeview or anywhere else.
Yeah, and you obviously you have the elephant in the room is that his high school coach is leaving as well. So that if you're a top basketball prospect these days, gone are the days of just, well, I commit somewhere, then I'm going to go for a year, and then I'm going to, if I play well enough, I'm going to go to the NBA. It's kind of, there's all these different options, and you've got the overtime league or what? I don't follow the stuff that closely on that end, but you've got options. You've got the reclassification stuff. There's so much more that goes into it. And then, as you mentioned before, the NIL aspect of Carolina does get a little bit of a distinct advantage in that he is a Columbia kid. So it's not just, if you're looking at local businesses who may want to support the basketball program or the players at the program, it's not just, oh, this is a kid that stayed in state. It is a hyper local kid that stayed in town.
Yeah, hyper local that has NBA level talent. I mean, just given the nature of his recruitment, and it's been such a, I hate the term low maintenance because it feels weird, but there's not been a lot of headache from South Carolina's perspective in recruiting him. It's been an easy recruitment to he's fantastic guy. I've talked to him a bunch, great family. It's been a really easy recruitment. And I think because of that, and because how much fans would love to root for something like South Carolina getting potentially the number one player in the country, I think those NLI options would be, you wouldn't have to go far to find people willing to give him some NLI money.
Yeah. And I mean, as you just alluded to, it seems like he's been great to you guys, man, like to the basketball media, to the high school media in the state as well. Sometimes these larger than life sort of names, honestly, the kids kind of let it go to their head, and then they don't want to talk to anybody, and it sort of becomes a bigger deal than it even maybe should be. It seems like he has always been down to earth and willing to talk, and even you look at the pictures. Katie, who takes photos for us on Gamecock Central, did a great job of capturing, I feel like, how into the game he was on Saturday. This does not seem like a kid, from my outside perspective looking in, that has let the process go to his head. He has sort of seemed to remain who he is.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a credit to his family. I got to not sit down with, but meet. Really, you exchange some messages with him every now and again, but I got to really sit down and talk with his family yesterday, and they're great. And when you get into some high-profile recruiting, you can have, for lack of a better word, handlers and people looking for theirs. And I don't get the sense that that's this case right now. And you wouldn't be able to tell it just by meeting him that he's a top 10 and, again, potentially the number one player in the country, just because of how humble he is. And I mean, last night, Jamie Shaw and I were at the game, and we finished up talking to Gigi. We're just kind of standing around letting the team leave because they played at Fort Mill. And he's taking pictures with fans. He's taking pictures with opposing fans and talking to people. And it's just different. It feels different with him. And he's a very down-to-earth guy, and, a great personality. And whoever lands him is going to get a really, really good piece of the puzzle.
Definitely, man. So we'll certainly keep everybody in tune on what's going on with that on GamecockCentral.com. You can still subscribe. Depending on when you're listening to this deal is going away very, very soon. $1 for your first year. So if you have not signed up yet, I would encourage you, if you're a GC Live watcher, listener, viewer, but you've never taken the plunge, this will be the time to do it. Collyn, the deal is going away forever, middle of this week. So $1 for a full year. For all of our football recruiting, basketball recruiting, baseball, women's just the entire deal for $1. Just try us out. $1. See if you like it. If you don't like it, you can cancel. No hard feelings. But
I'll have hard feelings, but yeah,
there will be some hard feelings.
Yeah, just for me specifically, not for
Okay, I got you. Collyn will have hard feelings. I'll be okay with it. But so, Collyn, let's roll through some of the other stuff going on and what was just a crazy few days. And by the way, I didn't even mention it off top. This show is, as always, presented by our buddy Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network, ClintHammond.com. You see it right above my head every single show. 803-771-6933. The game itself on Saturday, South Carolina defeating LSU in what was really just an incredible story of a game. I felt like you had Jermaine Kusnar with the maybe the best game I've ever seen him play, with his mom in the stands. It was well documented during the game, what she has gone through, the come from behind aspects of this game. South Carolina continuing to just sort of fight. And you know what? are they going to make the tournament? It's still a tough hill to climb. You, again, go check it out, GamecockCentral.com. You dug into some numbers. Let's make them go read the details. But how, in general, how tall is the climb at this point? Obviously, beating LSU at least keeps it a conversation. But this net ranking stuff, man, I was amazed that the Gamecocks didn't even really jump much as far as that went.
Yeah, it's largely efficiency based, and I delve really deep into that in the article, so I won't spoil it for you here. You can read it for $1. For better or worse, it's just the system they have right now, and in South Carolina's, some of the things that the net values, South Carolina's not great in, which is why those numbers dip. But at this point, all South Carolina can do is just try to win as many games as possible and let the chips fall where they may. They desperately needed. They had a quad one win before this, but not all quad one wins are created equal. And beating a good LSU team is the best win of the year by far. Best win of the year by far. And quad one, a chance to really improve the resume. And now you have some winnable games down the stretch. And if you figure out a way to win all of them, then you're cooking. But if not, then there's little room for error if you're South Carolina trying to make the NCAA tournament. And a couple wins probably helps your NIT case exponentially as well as you get down the stretch.
Yeah, and I was a little bit surprised looking at the numbers in your piece, Collyn, that even winning out but then losing to Auburn, even that scenario, which seems much more plausible, is still, you're talking about a very, very tough climb for this team. But as you said, all they can do is they're not going to quit. They're going to keep competing, and we'll certainly see what happens. Fast forwarding to Sunday, you were at Founders Park, right? For what I was on the road driving Sunday, and I was listening to the women's basketball game. I was listening to the baseball game. I'll admit, I was like, well, this baseball game is over. I imagine a lot of people felt the same way.
I felt the same way.
Yeah, Collyn felt the same way. How do you what's your takeaway from the weekend in sort of consolidating the fact that there were maybe some scary things about this weekend, while also the fact that you still have to give a team a lot of credit for battling it out and finding a way in the ninth. Although that's probably not repeatable. Most games that you're down six, you're not winning.
No. Listen, it's so much easier to correct mistakes when you're 2-1 compared to when you are 1-2. And winning helps the mood, the morale around the team. Winning the way you won certainly makes you feel a little bit better. Are there some concerning things? Absolutely. Need more consistency out of the bullpen. Need at-bats to be better with runners in scoring position. Runners on base, which was a struggle last year. They've been really good with runners on third and less than 2 outs. But you've seen enough. I mean, you saw some good things from Michael Braswell. We have a great story about him up there today. I'm a little bit biased, but I think what I wrote was really good. Andrew Eister and Braylon Wimmer both had really good weekends. Brayton Belk showed some flashes, walked 5 times in 3 games. They have some pieces to work with, and now it's just a matter of, because there's so many new faces, how do those pieces mesh, and when do you use one piece out for another or something like that? So a lot there are some concerns. I'm not saying there's not, but it's easier to correct those things when you win. And I think they have some pieces here that if it comes together, they have a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah, as Craig says, Michael freaking Braswell. This kid has like superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but he has superstar kind of written all over him, it feels like, Collyn.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked to Drew Meyer, who played in the bigs, and Joey Pancake, who played in, was a really, really good shortstop for South Carolina. Both started as freshmen, like Braswell did this weekend. And when you have those two guys going out and gushing about you and saying how much they love watching you play, how much they enjoy, and how special that you have a chance to be if you keep on this track, that says a lot. And he just brings an energy about him. He brings fearlessness and a swagger about him that you haven't seen in the shortstop position for a while. And if you can get that from him and really just channel that and have him turn into a leader on this team, which you need leaders on this team, that they got a chance to be a boon and really help this offense and really help this defense try to get where it needs to be to compete for a super regional and an Omaha berth.
We talked about this before the season started, but is this kid also their best option as closer?
He might be. He went out there and shoved against UNCG on Sunday, and it's a funky delivery. It comes out of his hand weird, and it's also like a fastball that's 91 to 93 depending on the day. So when you can mix that stuff, you got a chance to be a back end guy, and he's given no indications that he can't be an effective pitcher at this level in some capacity.
I wonder, Collyn, if he's a guy too that if he ends up pitching more and more, like you watch him throw the ball across the diamond from shortstop, it almost feels like there's maybe more in the arm as far as velocity, that maybe as time goes on, maybe he smooths out something a little bit with the pitching delivery, and maybe he adds a little bit extra velocity down the road. So we'll see. And I think instantly, man, week one, the fans are all in on this.
Fan favorite, man. That they love him, rightfully so. I mean, what he did on Sunday was as stupidly impressive as I've seen someone do anything on a baseball field in a very long time.
And local businesses, y'all should probably get in NIL. Probably a lot of things that could be done there if you're Michael Braswell, I would think. So we'll certainly be watching him here shortly. You're going to be headed back to the park, right? Winthrop, 4:00.
Winthrop at 4.
Pitch.
Yep.
What do we know? Who's starting for Carolina? What are you looking for tonight?
Yeah, Cade Austin's going to get the start for South Carolina. He really struggled in that outing on Friday night on opening day. He just got barreled up too much, and granted, it was his first college appearance, so that has something to do with it probably. And he's going to get back on the horse, and they're going to see if he can't get a little bit better. And he's got potential. He's been really good in the preseason. So we'll see. And if you're South Carolina, you need to get out to faster starts. You didn't on Saturday and Sunday, and now it's about, can we go out there and attack Winthrop and put pressure on them early and get out to a lead and take some of this pressure off the pitching staff that still needs to figure some things out. And those are the things that I'm really going to be looking for. And if they can do those things, it should be a win for South Carolina in pretty easy fashion.
Collyn's got to get out of here in about 2 minutes. So I'm going to talk a bit about the football press conference from yesterday. But to lead us into that, Collyn, before we let you get out of here, give me one thought on the Jody Wright debut yesterday, and whether it's from what Beamer said or what Jody said. Give me one thought from that, man, if you will.
You're going to be a good recruiter, man. That dude, obviously listening to him talk, he was fantastic. Funny, engaging, down-home Southern boy. You can tell that he has roots in the South, and he can recruit that area, these areas that he's going to be, recruiting. And then we were visiting with him afterwards, just introducing ourselves and chit-chatting for a minute. He's funny. So I think he's going to have a chance to be a really good recruiter, and he's learned from, one of the best in Nick Saban on how to do it. And Bill Clark's obviously a great coach too. So really impressed with him and his ability to talk to the media and just be engaging.
That smile did not leave his face.
I think it's still on there, the way he talked about it.
He was grinning the whole time, man. I love it. You kind of appreciate people like that. There was like a genuineness to
Yeah.
press conference. And whenever people would ask him questions and they would introduce themselves, he always called them back by name. I feel like there was a genuineness to the interactions as opposed to just, oh, you guys are the media, I have to stand up here and talk about it. It was more of a human to human interaction, which I think everybody probably appreciated. Collyn, we'll let you get out of here, man. Everybody go check out his baseball coverage tonight, GamecockCentral.com, South Carolina versus Winthrop. We'll talk to you soon, okay, man?
Awesome. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's Collyn Taylor, GamecockCentral.com, checking in with us as always here on GC Live. And we'll probably do a little bit of a short show. We're at about, the 30-minute mark now. If y'all have any questions, hit me with them, and I'll try to get you an answer before we get out of here. Craig saying Jody is a smiler. He absolutely is. He's got an infectious smile, y'all. It's kind of hard to put into words, but there was a genuineness about maybe a gratefulness about being at South Carolina that I think we've seen from a lot of these coaches. And I do think there was a sense at times when South Carolina has brought in past coaches who had been at other SEC schools, other sort of name, logo, if you will, SEC schools. There was a sense from some of these guys that maybe I don't even know if they felt this way, but this is the way it felt watching them interact, that they were a little bit above South Carolina, a little bit above the school. And I think you see with a lot of these guys Beamer has hired, that is certainly not the case, that these guys come in with a bit of a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. He reminds me a little bit, actually, and I'm just thinking of this, the way he interacts with people. It's kind of similar to Clayton White. Clayton White, just one of the most down-to-earth guys you will ever see talk, that you will ever meet. And Clayton White's that same guy, no matter the setting. And I think you want to talk about fit, which is sometimes an overused word, but certainly applies here. I think Jody Wright certainly fits with South Carolina's coaching staff. He fits with what Beamer is trying to build, and he fits in that he can sort of coach multiple spots. There's coaching. We talk about player position versatility a lot, but there's some coaching versatility in that he comes in as the tight ends coach, but he's coached O-line before, he's coached running backs before, he's been in a situation where obviously he ran recruiting for Nick Saban, which is probably, I don't know, that might be one of the scariest jobs in football, having to run the entire recruiting office for somebody as detail-oriented as Nick Saban. If you can do that for 3 years and do it successfully, then you have a little bit of moxie about you, in my opinion. So, yeah, very, very impressed, y'all. Easy to see why Jody Wright was the hire, in my opinion. I think you're gonna be very, very happy with the results there. I want to go a little bit more into that before we get out of here. But first, I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor. And you've heard me mention these folks the last, I would say, week and a half, last maybe 2 or 3 shows. And again, want to thank the fine folks at Liberty Tax right here in Columbia. Overcome your taxiety. 803-462-5576. Your taxiety is that feeling a lot of you get right now because it's tax time. You have to do your taxes. The government makes you do your taxes. And you maybe are a little bit concerned about exactly how it works. You want to make sure you do everything right. You want to make sure that you are protected from the IRS. And no better time in the world for you to call the tax team at Liberty Tax locations in Irmo and Lexington. You've got locations at 1123 South Lake Drive in Lexington, at 7467 St. Andrews Road in Irmo by the Kroger, and then a new location, also St. Andrews Road, but the Columbia side, 551 St. Andrews Road, Columbia 29210. That's by the Harbor Freight at KJ's Grocery next to Goodwill. They're locally owned and operated. You can do virtual income tax prep if you don't want to go in office, or you can go in for local tax prep in person in their office, and they are open evenings and weekends for this time of year. So go check out the folks at Liberty Tax right here in Columbia, or right across over there in Lexington if you want. And want to let Larry know how much we appreciate them supporting the show. Give them a call, 803-462-5576. If y'all got questions, hit me up with them. Gamecock Ryan says his break is up. Going to catch the rest after work. Keep up the good work. Ryan, appreciate you, man. Max says he's excited about football. Me too. Spring practice is in 3 weeks. I'm pumped, y'all. I mean, the excitement level amongst the fan base. I don't want to say it's at an all-time high. That's hyperbole. But the excitement level compared to where it was this time last year, compared to where it was certainly 2 and 3 years ago, is it's at a much better, more fun. Honestly, it's more fun to talk about the team right now. It's more fun to talk football with you guys right now. So I am beyond pumped about diving into some spring football practice coverage in a few weeks. And I'm beyond pumped to carry that over into the summer and into the season. Max says, I was looking at Wells' highlights. I couldn't really gauge his speed. Is he a fast receiver? I think he's one of those guys that I don't know that I would call him a burner, but he's plenty fast enough, if that makes sense. He's going to be able to separate, I think, at this level. He knows how to separate, certainly at the FCS level. And I think you guys are going to be very happy with Antwan Wells. I'm excited to watch him. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see him this spring a bit. I don't know what the practice schedule is going to be like as far as what's opened or closed, but he's one of those guys I'm very curious to watch go up against South Carolina's defensive backs and see what he's capable of. But so if you have not watched my Garnet Trust interview with Luke Doty, I would encourage you guys to go watch it. It's completely free, whether you're a Gamecock Central subscriber or a Garnet Trust supporter or not. You can go watch it, youtube.com/GamecockCentral. Really solid 30 to 33 minutes with Luke. And I don't say that because I did the interview. I say that because of Luke himself. Just some really great, honest, in-depth answers. And, I've never not been impressed with Luke, but I was even more impressed with Luke. Just talking about, South Carolina bringing in Spencer Rattler, talking about the injury and just everything that he's been through, and just has continued to have a smile on his face, continued to handle things the right way. So I would go check that out. And the reason I bring that up right now, Mac, is that he also talked about some of the newcomers, and Antwan Wells was one of the guys that Luke bragged on. And he I believe his quote was, this guy's a dog. Like, this guy gets after it, brings an edge to the receiving core. He's got some size. He's got some thickness to him, I should say. He's over 200 pounds. And actually, I'm working on getting an Antwan Wells exclusive interview as well. So I'll ask him. We'll find out exactly what his 40-yard dash is. We'll find out exactly how fast he is. I'm going to say he's going to be plenty fast enough, but not necessarily that burner guy that's known for his speed, if that makes sense. Craig says Anthony Rose is going to be a dude. I agree, man. That kid is an absolute freak of an athlete. Comes in listed as a safety, but he has cornerback athleticism. I'm a big Anthony Rose guy. I think he can help this team this year if he can come in and get settled in and really handle all the stuff that comes with playing as a freshman. I think the physical tools, if that makes sense, are there. Wyman Long on Facebook wanting to know, will Stone Blanton play baseball or stick to football? Right now, the plan is 100% for Stone to play both. He was recruited by both. He was recruited equally by football, but then baseball was always there to say, hey, you can. I was about to say he was recruited equally by both. That's probably not true, because he was committed to Mississippi State baseball. So in baseball recruiting, there's kind of an unspoken rule that you don't really go all in recruiting someone who is committed to another school. But baseball always had consistently let it be known, if you come to South Carolina, you have the opportunity to come play baseball. And so the plan has always been for Stone to play both. And he's pretty good at both from what I hear. So we'll certainly, can that change as, if football is going way better than baseball, could all that potentially change? Of course. But right now, the plan is both. Let's see. I want to get a couple more questions for you guys. Wow, y'all got some comments here. Let's see. Y'all give me a second. Let me dive back up. There was a question about tight ends, I think, that I missed. Okay, yeah. Should you be concerned about tight end depth? I don't think so. Beamer mentioned that yesterday, though, that there is a concern in his eyes this spring, which at first you may be like, well, why is tight end a concern? Well, as far as spring depth goes, compare it to last year, and Nick Muse is gone, obviously. Well, E.J. Jenkins, while it's sort of a hybrid role, essentially by the final half of the year last year, was playing wide receiver. And Eric Shaw was playing wide receiver as well. So that's three guys right there that were tight ends that are now playing different positions. Plus, Jaheim Bell is in the tight end room, but isn't really playing inline tight end. We honestly need to figure out a name for his position. Jaheim, is a tight end, but is he really? I don't know if you count him that way. He's not a guy that's going to be blocking a ton as an inline tight end. So you have Trey Kenyon, obviously, and you'll have Austin Stogner coming in, but he won't be here for spring practice. So Stog coming in will help alleviate a little bit of that concern. But is there a little bit of an issue with depth at tight end at this point? Yes. Is that something they may address in the transfer portal if the right guy came along after the spring? That's one of those positions where if the right guy came along, people would probably be like, wait, why are you getting another tight end? I wouldn't be surprised if they addressed it. But again, only if the right guy popped along. Just like, talking about edge and defensive end. If the right defensive end came along after the spring, would you address it? I would say yes, absolutely. They have 2 spots left. So we'll see if we'll see where those 2 spots end up going. What's up to KC? KC is a new On3 Gamecock Central subscriber. Welcome on board, KC. Hope everybody else can join us as well. Craig, throwing some love at the Doty interview. Appreciate you, Craig. Yeah, I would encourage y'all to go listen to Luke, man. He really Luke is a pro's pro. Awesome dude, awesome kid, and just has handled everything so much better than I think most people would. Lynn says, I'm ready to get your reviews of Rattler in action. Me too. I'm ready to see that. Very much ready to see that. Rob says, Doty seems like an awesome kid. Absolutely. Let's see. Jamie says, shout out on the Garnet Trust interviews. So many coming out. Hey, many more to come, man. So I'll, this isn't public yet, but I'll go ahead and give y'all the scoop here on the show. Terrell Dawkins, I'm supposed to talk to him tomorrow. So that one will probably drop on Friday, I would think. And then I've worked it out to talk to Antoine Wells Jr. as well. But we haven't set that one up as far as just getting a time and date that works for everybody. These kids are very busy right now. They may not be in spring practice, but they are super busy right now. They lift in the mornings on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. They have Wednesday off. Wednesday is recovery day. And then they have these competitive toughness workouts, exercises, competitive toughness nights, whatever you want to call it, on Tuesday and Thursday. So the kids are very, very busy. So we're always sort of working with that in mind for these Garnet Trust interviews. But I promise you, many, many more to come as far as that goes. Let's see. Greg says Stogg will be great. I agree. Lake said, is Eric Shaw still on the team? He is on the team. He's been playing wide receiver. Let's see. Love the interviews. Love the interviews. Bob says there a cutoff date for transfers to come in. There won't be any transfers. There won't be any additional transfers for spring practice. That date has already passed, Bob. There can still be transfers after the spring that could come in for the roster next year. I do need to check on one thing. I should know this, y'all, to be honest. I saw some talk that there may be an SEC rule now about an SEC to SEC transfer after a certain date has passed. That date has already passed. So I need to look at the details on that and get back to you and make sure for future reference that I am telling people correctly. But certainly based on my understanding, and this is one of those things when coaches talk about the transfer portal needing just some better structure, I think is the best way to say it. When they talk about the portal needing better structure, I think this is one of the things coaches are talking about. We need a little more structure on what is allowed and what is not allowed as far as the timing and eligibility. Is there going to be a cutoff to where if you get to a certain date, that's the cutoff for rosters, and that's it? Is there a little bit better way we can sort of do this thing? There probably is. Now, what all those answers are, I don't know, but I think you're going to see a little more regulation just about how the portal gets structured, because obviously we know it's been the Wild West as far as that goes. The last month it's slowed down, but prior to that, I mean, y'all saw it. Those 2 months there, it was crazy for a stretch. Let's see what else we got, y'all. Here's a good question for Mac. What changed with the O-line communication after the bye week? You know what, man? I don't remember the exact time they implemented this, but I think bye week was before the Florida game, right? I believe this is when they implemented having Eric Douglas, having the center make more of the calls up front, and taking a bit of that off of the quarterback. If I remember correctly, I believe that had something to do with it. And I think they simplified things a little bit as the season progressed, and you saw fewer issues up front. And I will say this, y'all: the offensive line is going to be talked about a ton. The offensive line is going to be talked about a ton this offseason, rightfully so. And I've seen a lot of talk about recruiting and can South Carolina add a transfer portal offensive line. If they're going to fix the offensive line for next year, it's going to be through those 8, 9, 10 kids that are already in the rotation, that are already on campus. It's going to be about finding the best 5, then finding the next best 2 or 3, and then gelling together in their second year in this scheme. So I think it's not about finding – you're not going to find a future first-round draft pick left tackle just chilling in the transfer portal to come in and save the day. That's a great idea in theory, right? That sounds great. But guys like that are already going to go to the NFL. They're not changing schools. So the keys to the offensive line moving forward is going to be development of those guys that are on campus and finding the right 5, finding the right fit. to get the best 5 on the field. I will say this, and I'm not making excuses, but it should look better in year 2, because there's going to be a comfort level within this scheme. You're going to have a better quarterback situation, which I don't care what anyone says. Having a quarterback that can get the ball out quick and understands exactly what needs to happen, even having better receivers where you're not taking as many coverage sacks, can help an O-line to look better. But I think the big thing is just being in year 2, being in a situation where you understand the terminology. You've been around it for 2 years now, 2 seasons now, and they did sort of simplify things as the year progressed. So I think sort of knowing what they are on offense, having a better feel for what works with this talent or these skill sets, I should say. The O-line, I would imagine, will be improved. Now, how much more improved will they be is the question. And, I think it's all about matchups too. The biggest thing and maybe one of the hardest things for South Carolina is going to be to prove they've made that step forward as an offensive line against the great D lines that they face. Because, I think we sometimes just try to look at things in a vacuum, and we just look at Carolina's O-line as Carolina's O-line. When how they look on a play-to-play basis or week-to-week basis, game-to-game basis, is largely also dependent on who you're facing. So if you're facing North Carolina, as we saw, South Carolina played very well up front against North Carolina. But some of that was because North Carolina got out-physicaled, and North Carolina didn't have – now, they've recruited pretty darn well up front as well, but I don't know if North Carolina faces the type of size that South Carolina had on its O-line. I don't think North Carolina faced that week in, week out. Now, the other side has been when you're South Carolina and you're facing Texas A&M, for example, just studs. It doesn't look pretty, right? And when you're facing, as much as everybody watching this show probably hates to talk about it, when you're facing Clemson's defensive front, when you're facing Georgia's defensive front, it's just a different story. But that to me is going to be the toughest step for Carolina to take as an offensive line, as an offensive unit, will be, can you give your running backs time? Can you give your quarterbacks time? Can you give your running backs room against the elite defensive lines that you're going to face in this league? And look no further. Even the O-line's performance early on against Eastern Illinois, a team South Carolina's O-line should have obliterated. And there were already signs of distress early on in the season against Eastern Illinois. But then look at the way they finished the year against North Carolina, which is obviously an ACC, a Power 5 program. And South Carolina, I would say, was pretty dominant in that game. So I think there was progress on the offensive line. And I think everybody being in the same scheme for a full year will be helpful. How helpful is it? Does it matter against the Texas A&Ms of the world? We shall all find out together, right? But it will be helpful. And something else that's not being talked about is having Greg Adkins, your O-line coach, be in a better situation than he was last year. I'm not going to get all into his business, but Greg Adkins went through a lot last year. Some of that ended up being public with some of the health scare issues that Shane Beamer talked about after the Auburn game. So when your O-line coach is going through a lot on a personal level, we got to remember these are still human beings. So that plays a factor. That has an effect as well. So with a second year under the same O-line, second year under the same offense, I'll be very curious to see what progress South Carolina can make as an offensive unit. And I think continuity played a big part, from everything I've heard, in decisions that have been made about South Carolina's offense. Obviously, there was a lot of fans, and you can make a case. There are a lot of fans that wanted South Carolina to make a change at offensive coordinator. There were some really low moments for the South Carolina offense this past year. So I get it, but I think having some continuity after having a different OC year after year after year, different quarterbacks coach every couple of years. There's something to be said about there being some continuity. And I think from everything I've heard, that was part of Beamer's decision making. Let's not just blow this thing up 1 year in. Let's not blow this thing up every year when it doesn't go the right way. Let's let it play out. Let's see what happens, and let's see what this offense can be with with some better pieces all the way around. So we'll certainly all find out, and I am looking forward to checking this thing out this spring and hopefully getting a little bit of a vantage point that we can bring back to you guys via Gamecock Central. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to hop on off here. Appreciate y'all joining us or joining me at this point. Appreciate Collyn for being on earlier. Appreciate my buddy Clint Hammond, ClintHammond.com, 803-771-6933. If you're in the market for a home or maybe you want to refinance and save yourself some money, hit Clint up. And as you see that scroll going right below me, if you're on the video version, I appreciate our friends at the tax team at Liberty Tax locations in Columbia, Irmo, and Lexington, 803-462-5576. They will help you knock out your taxes. And I believe I'm even going to get Mike Yuva to call him up and do his taxes. So somebody's got to make sure that Mike handles his business and doesn't end up getting a call from the IRS. So we'll be sending old Mikey to those guys, 803-462-5576. Again, go check out GamecockCentral.com. Take advantage, if you haven't already, of that $1 deal. I would love to see some of your beautiful faces on the Insiders Forum so that we can continue the conversation there. For Collyn Taylor, I am Wes Mitchell. Hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I will see you all soon.